be among these wonderful fellow poets. This is called the Villanelle. A taste of honey's worse than none at all. So say the little birds outside my door. They'd have us sated in a wet bed sprawled. The honeysuckled thrush warbles her call. The one I barely brushed leaned in for more. A taste of honey's worse than none at all. I skirted lips, orality would stall. Asunder went the feathers from my fleur, and even full I could not sate them all. Vague traces of meaning that couldn't fall, psychosis blazing chariot core. A hint of honey's worse than none at all. So when satiety comes to the wall between two fleshly folds of wing and spore, I'll splay my sated gaze to where they sprawl and make my fate torn in a Thracian brawl of wanton birds and bones on bones, still sure. A taste of honey's worse than none at all. Just read this rosy loner's sage scrawl. Rather new called Hazelnuts. I smell a rat, Lesbia said. The primary process, in fact, your whole manner of, wait a minute, I interrupted. What sort of coffee is this? Hazelnuts, she responded. Haven't you ever tasted hazelnut coffee before? She wrapped some type of fabric around her shoulders, stuff that looked rather expensive, and curled her legs under her while she sat on a weird paisley cushioned chair. She held her mauve cup with two hands, and I looked at her black or purple fingernails. But to proceed, in oral cultures, for example, there's no distance. When I saw you, look, I said, do you care if I take a shower? I really can't show up to this thing smelling like a brewery. I'll only take a second. As I walked toward the bathroom, I could hear her voice getting smaller, something about Finnegan's Wake and completion. The towels were sweet and clean, and the water was good and hot. There was still a strange reflection of the hazelnut, and for a moment I was back in my new maroon Mustang. This was years ago. I had thick, short hair and crisp jeans, and I was cruising east on 40 right at that part where it dips under Grand, and I was hit with that smell that always used to hit me there. This is me now. I haven't been on a highway in years. And the smell was something that would come much later, when time will have folded meaning back into itself. A smell that at that time predicted what it would smell like. A smell that was trapped in itself and not soluble. A smell that was overdetermined and deformed and defiant. Oh, my bum wool blazer in the sun. I turned the water off. That I hope will elicit some claps from Ken Brown. It's called Degree to be Conferred. Tried and convicted, I was sent down to create something beautiful that made no sense. I had always known it would end in a trial. I had always known that I would eventually get down to the wildflowers, nothing but wildflowers, in bed for 20 hours a day, a lightning bolt carved into my chest, accidentally saying everything I ever wanted to say. I was not the one who walked into Jesuit Hall and pleaded for an exorcist. I was not the one who hallucinated where the art therapist had angrily written, join perfect IQ, join Mensa. I was not the one who stood in line for his meds when the power's out and then was shocked by blinding light as he was past the cup. I was not the one who stood for double meaning, the offensive feminine, the lewd, the clonopin shot after singing his song. I know the phone has rung wildly for the last time, and the gavel knocks for some other absurdly pale bird. I am constituted somewhere out there beyond the blurbs, somewhere where I can skip past the churchyard with all of my sorrow and ambiguity again, where I can whistle every time my mood changes, where I can read the wind and not the other way around. That's going to be the title of a new anthology that Deborah Mashabini is putting out for the group called Vision, Strength, Access. And if you're interested in hearing about that, talk to her after the show. This is an older poem that used to be kind of funny, and now it's, I don't know if it's funny anymore. But it's called Bloated. You can relate out of anything. At least I'm not 700 pounds. At least I was never in the Hitler Youth. At least I'm not insane exactly all the time. At least I can still barely wear my belt. And that life is fair, full of objects. Tell it to her rosy cheeks and the metaphors of the strong and the weak, the consumptives and the others who count all their drinks. That's why I always wanted to ride the rails, so I wouldn't have to worry about keeping these pictures and jewelry. Lately I've begun to get lonely. I've stopped thinking of myself as a player. There's too much downtime. So when Anne called and I told her about the relations, I tried to say the things I thought she'd think. You know, stuff about the gray. We decided to meet at Mihalis, the site of my failed wingman exploit after the flaming Dr. Pepper's alone, telling some dude I needed a wingman for these women, and he got in my face, a shunned embarrassment. Now with Anne, I couldn't help noticing the loudmouth blowhard at the end of the bar around a group of Hoosiers that used to be me. Well, at least I'm not him. But a strange thing happened. Anne pulled her right breast from her dress and wearing a stern face accosted me with it. I felt kind of worse because my shirt wouldn't button. She looked at me and held it there. No one noticed. Anne came forward a little, cupping it, meeting my eyes. I was so bloated, but at the same time so starved. I could hear parts of the conversation next to us. I thought of leaving as someone whispered, "Cuckoo." This one is for Ken too. It's called True Story. NYU. I was on the 5th floor at a party when I jumped out the window. There was no curtain blowing past, no curtain to catch me. I left behind the sound of my girlfriend dropping acid with a bunch of actors. Inevitably, all my textbooks closed as my feet crossed the window frame. I got hit in the face with a sesame bagel as I lay down to die on the air. My brethren threw my boots after me. I heard a girl shouting, "You didn't throw up on me yet. Throw up on me." My childhood dog was trying to speak down below. 2 vets were putting him to sleep. Bob Dylan threw me a guitar pick, but I couldn't catch it. I was either going to die or catch a taxi with a suicide note. I twisted out of my cape into nakedness as the lights on the World Trade Center spelled SOS and the sounds from the party got dimmer and dimmer. I could still hear my girlfriend on acid waiting through the flooded financial aid office. I could still hear my buddy talking to a French girl, asking how to say this and that in French. I could still hear my advisor. "You stink. I thought I told you to see a shrink." But he didn't grab my ankles. Possibly I was beyond reach. I was falling too fast for anyone to teach. And I didn't die. I didn't deserve all that. I hit the ground walking toward West Virginia through the village. I got money and clothes from the homeless. I made it to the railroad and never looked back. Born again, hard. Gerald Stern, these are your steps. This is where Rebecca found me reading Dostoevsky. Here's where I threw up. Here's where I freaked out. Now I'm back to lie in the grass. I've got a fat check in my wallet and I plan to drink until morning. I'm going to smoke with the reggae men and dance like a fool. Tonight I may die in this place where I was born. For all I plan to do, I may hang. Out there, I pointed to Catullus. I saw the next Robert Frost. I dropped names. Enthusiasm. I'm back, unsheathed, unguarded, with nothing but history to call him. Thank you. Our next reader is a very good friend of mine who has been a wonderful inspiration. And a long time ago, when we decided we were going to be friends, we had to make a deal that I would never try to get him to stop drinking if he would never try to get me to start. And it's worked out so well so far. And
more for me.
He writes really interesting poems, and he's got a very individual personality and talent. I welcome to the stage Ken Brown. It's a surprise.
Surprise. have not touched a computer or keyboard for the last 6 months. I think it's changing the way we think, the way we behave. So you best remember who your friends are. This is called Cyber Sober. I was seeing this girl named Tara, whom I wasn't even attracted to. We got along fine, but she was slightly overweight, which makes me the male chauvinist pig. After performing at a show solo one evening, I wound up at a bar because I needed to unwind a bit. Suddenly, this loving chick sits beside me, only to tell me that her name is Terry. Well, I'd been recovering from a bender of biblical proportions and felt horrible about being close to Tara. Tara was fantastic fun to be with, but I fucking hated myself for milking the myth that we were a couple in perpetual bliss. Meanwhile, Terry and I were outrageously flirting like infant koalas who knew not where their moms were. So we wound up exchanging email addresses and how to get in touch on instant Yahoo. I managed to weave my way home like an insect manages to avoid deadly bug spray. It was the insect inside me which turned the computer on when, boop, there she was, Terry, inside my computer. And then the phone rang, and it was Tara. So I'm talking to Tara, and I'm typing to Terry simultaneously when I realized that this was all going to end in tears. So I turned the damn computer off, and I've never seen them again. Thank you. This is called Freckles. It's based on an interview I did with somebody I know. So the words are from the other person, but I turned it into a poem. My parents took a lot of LSD when they fucking conceived me, so I wound up being born with a lot of freckles. My mom is still a horrible liar, and my dad does not correct her. But I do believe in transmogrification because of my grandma. And that's why I love her. She still has lots of shit which airs on YouTube. Endless Panels just went on forever. So that's who wound up raising me, my grandma. She was flowing when I realized what the situation really was. My uncle was there, and he didn't know where she was going with any of this. She was more like my mother. That's why I survived. I mean, I still believe in the full-time ultra consciousness, even after you croak, but not in the flesh. Personas are where they exist. That's sort of what you see in all these ghosts. It's sort of like all of us are the very same souls. Thank you. Do I still have some time?
You have a subscription to Newsweek? I think you have another 10
I
minutes.
have a subscription.
10 minutes or so.
I do get Playboy.
Why are you asking me?
Well,
Am I the board coach? Oh, Underwood, yes.
Underwood,
You mentioned the no-show.
the old no-show, Brett Underwood, KDHX Radio, 88.1. See, they're all handwritten because I don't use typewriters. I did on this one here. Whatever happened to handsome Ken? He's lonesome. This is called third grade. Linda was singing, "Come Saturday morning," and how she was gonna go away with her friends at the talent show, but she didn't have any friends. Nobody liked her, though she wasn't really picked upon. She was like a weapon or a leper whom you didn't touch. No one ever did, yet no one abused her. I was her next door neighbor and rather popular throughout the school. 12 years later, she was the hottest chick on the block while I was broke. And who by fire, who by water, who went, well, Jesus Christ, this is Leonard Cohen's song. That's not even mine. This is called Harleen 68. It was based on one of those infamous interviews I like to do with women and men. I've lived a loveless, sexless life, which always was painful, and I don't know how to change it. Time is not literally faster, though the second hand is ticking slower. There is less time to fulfill life. There are lots of exciting exceptions. Suddenly, you watch yourself aging. Panic strikes. Doesn't panic accelerate time? Sometimes it's very difficult for me. My income flow is inconsistent. It's not like it's a secret or anything. I've taken Vicodins. Sometimes it makes me want to do the dishes. Sometimes it makes me want to make sexy videos. It's like 1927 again, and I've been actually thinking about moving. I haven't experienced passages, and I do feel trapped by my lack of knowledge. I've been alone for a long time, and I don't understand why. I'm disappointed at the outcome of my efforts at recovery. I've begun to feel oppressed by the repression of the 12-step program. The fruits of recovery haven't changed my life at all. That was the beginning, the end of my vindication. Embracing isolation. Thank you. That wasn't about me because I still drink. I have no problems with it. That girl had a problem with it. This is called Matt 2. And it has nothing to do with our beautiful poet Matthew. There's a lot of people named Matt.
Matt.
Julia was the woman he lived with. Julia was his ebb and flow. Julia was who he wanted to get away from, but not because he didn't love her. It's just that there was nothing there. I want to go to Bangkok just like you did, is what he told me. Well, Matt was such a gentle man, I never could get through the core of him. Back when I was homeless, I lived with him for maybe 3 weeks. It's almost as if I'm attempting to hang myself as I scrawl this material. Matt had Julia at his heels, yet wanted to get away from her. That's all he ever spoke about, and that's all I ever encouraged. Well, he wrote me about 3 years ago how Julia was pregnant. All right, that's enough.
I'll say it was emphatic.